Hey y'all, grown black folks talk. Miss D, did you see any black love in San Francisco? So I last week talked about all the different beautiful black women I saw out and about enjoying their lives with every race of man that is available and by themselves. And although I did not state it at that time, that's why I left the question available to be begged, because I meant to talk about this in conjunction with Black women making money, having made a very interesting discovery. There is a Black Love Summit coming up, and I'm going to actually go get this off her page for a moment. There is a Black Love Summit coming up, and let me see, here we go. And so she had a good question to ask about it. And it took me a minute to realize upwardly mobile black woman, which is UMBW, just saw us in my timeline. The real question is, what will the ratio of men to women be in the audience? And is this targeted for the upwardly mobile black woman? And so that's actually coming up on October 21st. And then I saw the couple that was there, and I'm like, oh, we're going to have to talk about this. Mr. and Mrs. Ellis, because it illustrates something. And so did the comments underneath this post. But first, to get back to what I saw in San Francisco, because I know the history of my city, understanding context. I did see some black man, black woman, one in 4 days. And I also saw a black man, white woman. And these both were very interesting interactions compared to the others. The other ones were very relaxed and very free. The black woman, black man, they may have just been in a serious moment. They were a beautiful couple. Both of them radiant and shining in the sunshine. If you love to watch things about Wakanda and African documentaries and imagine us back in the day, they would have fit the bill. Two absolutely beautiful representations of Africanity in America. Absolutely. They also did not look happy. And like I said, it also could have been a very serious moment, but San Francisco is a very difficult town. San Francisco does not want there to be more black couples here. San Francisco has been trying to get black people to move out by any means necessary since 1947. Nor was this the first go round. People do not know that a lot of the black people living in British Columbia moved up there in the 1850s because California expelled all black people from the state. Too many black people did too well on the gold rush. So California solved the problems about being a free state by simply expelling its entire black population. That was one of those moments. Um, Little known moments in history. It may not have been the 1850s, but it's somewhere back there. So San Francisco has a long reputation of having done this. And then we keep coming back. According to historian John Templeton, his book Cakewalk, um, black people in the process of, well, the book is a little older, but at this point we would be in the process of our seventh return. And there is some evidence from what I saw just last week that the seventh return is underway because you do have young black people in tech, but it's a hard city to start a relationship in. And I think I've seen this couple before actually. Because these are all my neighbors, just out for a walk, basically, in my general or extended neighborhood. It's hard, but see, she's taking a bigger risk than he is because this is a city that puts black women on the street and makes them homeless for what the men do. This is a city that checks black women for being vectors for undesirable men. I've talked to y'all about gang injunctions and all the rest, where San Francisco will find a way to snatch housing from black women. And see, if it's not public housing, it's private housing, then what the neighborhood associations do, they will begin to work with the local police and they will make it very, very difficult. So she's taking a bigger risk than he is. And one of the things about the whole conversation about Black love is, are we going to talk honestly about the risks? See, black men have been talking for a while. James Earl Jones, you remember James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, down to 2020 with a little help from today's technology for him to continue doing that till 2021. Said, being able to have a white woman is a form of freedom. I would guess that Clarence Thomas would tell you the same thing. Having a white woman shows that you're finally being accepted into American society. That's a step up. Black men have been hypergamous for a while. And by saying that, they have been saying that marrying a black woman keeps you in the same relative position. already conceded he can't do enough with you to move forward. He can't do enough by his own efforts. All he can do is move himself up somewhere where some white woman may take him, which brings me to the black man, white woman. The white woman was walking in front, clearly the dominant. I mean, if you're gonna get mad about ASAP Rocky walking behind Rihanna, the billionaire, then this would have upset you as a proud black man. Carrying the bags, she's just all out in front. He's not protecting her, but he is in a servile position. You almost could see the chain and the coffle. But see, the issue is he's not gonna let go of that. He'll put up with that. This is not a young couple either. I've never seen my father treat my mother like that. I've never seen my they're always side by side. She's sometimes a little bit behind because he walks a little bit faster, and sometimes he has to stop because her steps are shorter than his. But I've never seen that kind of servile behavior from a black man. But you almost could see the change. But he has his white woman. Remember, that's a step up for him. Although anybody looking at them coming down the street would be like, what in the. But we've listened to that for a long time. So you have a situation in which black men think being chained to a black woman will keep him in a position because she's going to have all these kids that I can't support and I can't do this and I do that. But if I get a white woman, I've arrived. Well, okay, is anybody going to say that honestly at the Black Love Conference? Have these black men getting up and talking about how it is that they just see this as all as a burden? Are they going to have that honest conversation? Duval Ellis humiliated his wife publicly on that same Black Love channel, talking about how he feels pressured and how he really didn't want to get married. And over that whole conversation, the other men there centered God and praised their wives, and he had not a good thing to say about Mrs. Ellis. Now, that was some years back. He may have matured. But I'm like, you made them the headliner? No, there ain't gonna be no honest conversations. There ain't gonna be no honest conversation about that. Because you're gonna have a whole black women making money asked a really good question. You're gonna have a whole lot of women in the room. And he's gonna know better because it's gonna mess up his money and his chance to be doing this, to be talking that talk publicly. And to have black men talk about how marrying a black woman doesn't help them compete with white men in society because quote, nobody wants us. That's an albatross. Having those kids that cost money is an albatross. And that's why there are so many single mothers because absent fathers leave because they think they can do better. And then you got to talk about, okay, how is that working? Mokomami has figures that suggest that close to half of all the homeless people in the United States of America are these men on the run. Now, we're going to talk about that at the Black Love Conference. Let me give you a couple facts. These you can look up. Number one, your census data says that even if everything was good between black men and women, there are between 2 and 3 million more black women than there are black men. Your census numbers for black men say 13 to 15 million. Your census numbers for black women say 17 to 18 million. So even if everything were good, you need to mention this because if all black women want to get married, there are not enough black men available, even if everything were good. Is anybody going to talk about those felony numbers for black men? 1/3, 30 to 33% are convicted felons, meaning that, and I know some felons who have made amazing comebacks and become upstanding men. But the thing about it is, every time you go to get housing, every time you talk about employment, if a man is going to lead his family and needs to have a steady job, a business, and housing to put his family in, that's an albatross. He also has no civil rights on a federal level. And in many states, he does not have any civil rights anymore. This is why Tory Lanez, when he finally gets out of jail 8 to 10 years from now, will probably be just straight up deported to Canada. And his wife and that 16-year-old son that's going to have to grow up without him are going to have a decision they have to make. You have no rights once you become a felon. The 13th Amendment says basically slavery is abolished in all United States and territories except in the case of felony imprisonment. 1/3 of black men have been stripped of their civil rights owing to felony imprisonment. Now we can sit up here all day and talk about the injustice and the injustice and the unfairness of how some of them got that. We have an innocence project for a reason. But I happen to know, because I've been in San Francisco for my whole 42 years, that nobody made black men choose Their fathers and grandfathers built houses and legacies for their families. Their sons and grandsons chose drugs and guns as the easy way. Felix Mitchell and the United Guerrilla family and the other gangs around here had tons of willing members. Black men chose that. And then they chose the consequences of that and got their butts swept up out of here. And the women who dealt with those men got swept up out of here and cannot get back. That's 1/3. So at the Black Love Summit in Atlanta, they don't talk about that. So they don't talk about the risk also, which I know about because I live in San Francisco in a post-gentrified area. As I said, you as a Black woman who you're still Black, you can still have children. So people are now looking at, are you going to vector any of these no good men back into this area? And your ability to live and thrive and get ahead is now going to be damaged because bigotry is a thing too. Other people know Black men's stats. And they're not necessarily going to give like, well, it's only 1 in 3. He could be one of the good 2 or 3. That's not going to happen. This is what makes it so sad when Black men do not check Black men on their criminal behavior. All of them will be judged for the 1/3. That's a very high number anyway. But that makes a Black man an actual existential risk to any woman he deals with because he will always be judged in a way that has to do with bigotry. It's not fair and it's not right. But this is also part of what plays into the fact that other groups of women throw Black men back real fast. It doesn't happen to Black women as often. Other groups of women know they can. All they got to do is tap into the bigotry. When your group of men is 1/3 felons, nobody is sitting out there looking at, okay, how much of that is unfairness? The other part of that is Black men like to ideate online about, oh, well, see, when they go mess with these other men and they try to come home, ain't nobody gonna come. Look, no, no, no. Black women are not the people are not the ones who need people to wait 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 years for them to come home. A Black man needs Black women to be waiting, his mama, his grandmama, and someone he can have sex with. Wants all that when he gets home with some money till he figures out what he's going to do next. And what he's going to do next is terribly circumscribed. That's 1 out of every 3 men. Anybody at the Black Love Conference going to talk about that. How about this? Black women are killed by Black men 4.5 to 5 times a day. That's a number between 1,600 and 1,800 times a year. 51% of that is intimate partner violence. So let's just take the high number on that. 850 times per year, a Black woman gets into a relationship with a Black man and he kills her. Anybody in Black Belt? We're not even talking about the abuse cases, the sexual assault cases. Anybody gonna talk about them numbers out of Chicago where Black women are like 16% of the population, but account for more than 40% of the sexual assaults? Are we gonna talk about that? Are we gonna talk about how it is that between 18 and 60% of all Black children have been touched inappropriately? Are we going to deal with that? Are we going to deal with that and who the suspects for that are? Are we going to deal with what happens with Black women in maternal and infant mortality and how if you're going to have children with a Black woman, and by the way, this works for any group of men, are they aware and will they listen to it and are they up to the task? Because if you're going to have children with this woman, you have to be chief offender, you have to be chief defender, not chief offender, because that's what we have going on now. I just stated all those femicide stats and the numbers coming out of Chicago and so forth and so on. Chief defender, because if that man does not step up to be on top of who are my wife's doctors, who are my wife's nurses, they need to know who I am and that I'm going to bring the pain if something happens to her. If he's not ready to do that and does not understand and does not want to learn, there is a reasonably good chance his wife and his children may not even survive childbirth. Meaning that you got to have the kind of courage necessary to let get in some white women's face, which is very dangerous, by the way, for Black men, and get into some white administrators' face, or you got to have the money necessary to go ahead and look at healthy alternative ideas. Does he have enough money to be able to just write a check and pay for a doula? Does he know about alternate ways that African women have given birth that can be instituted that give your wife a better chance with hospital support Do you have enough money to go to the best hospital? Like if you could check out, okay, what's the maternal mortality rate over here? What's the maternal mortality rate over here? And can I afford to put her in to take her to the best hospital if necessary? Sammy Bliss, Black Women Making Money, and Mocha Mommy have been in the comments with each other, so I can't say exactly who said it, but does he know the cost of childcare? If he expects you to go 50-50, does he know how much it is going to cost to have that child taken care of in the meantime? Does he know the cost of private school? And is he prepared to meet any of this? Are we going to be talking about that at the Black Love Summit? Huh? If not, if that's not on the agenda, let me tell you something. I'm not a bigot, and my parents epitomize love. Uh, we just celebrated a 67th wedding anniversary of one of our deacons and deaconesses at our church. We love that. We support that. I know good young Black husbands and good young Black wives, 30 and downward. I know some mixed couples where the Black person in that couple is doing well. And I know some Black men who are doing well, and I know some Black women who are doing well. I am for all of that. But I need y'all to understand Black love as a concept is just another variation of Black excellence. Stephanie Perry, Adelia Borshade, and younger Marissa Price, who's a little bit newer, has been talking about how we do all this stuff to try to prove to other people that we are valuable and that we compare in America and that we're worthy to climb this same American dream crock. It's the same thing. Because anything that you believe that's not true in America and you are a Black woman is going to have you default to being a breeder. You are being programmed to only see your value as getting with a Black man and having Black children and continuing the race. But that idea did not come from us. That idea came from white men who wanted to be sure to have slaves. So what's going to end up being today is you're going to end up filling out the healthcare system between having to work, have your kids, go through whatever you go through in the hospital, and still be left by that man who may or may not, depending on how you get him. He also, again, 1 out of 3, if you don't do a background check, you're married to a convicted felon. They don't do well with getting legal employment and legal housing. And some of them are violent already. So presuming you survive, then you got to go find Level Up Single Mom. Shout out to Level Up Single Mom. And figure out how you're going to get your dignity back and get you and your kids through alone, which raises your chances of raising daughters who are going to be programmed the same way because they will not have a man in their life who showed them what it is to be loved and cherished by a man, and that your son is going to follow the men on the street and become another person who breaks another woman and breeds more. And this is how we sign up for volunteer slavery. Black love is a nice package. Black love is a nice package. Again, the front runner for the Atlanta Summit is a man who made it his business publicly to talk about how he wanted to put his woman under glass while he continued to play the field and had nothing to do but complain about her pressuring him into marriage. And then you got to deal with the comments. You have a culture of men who's like, I thought this was about Black love, and all these women still have their names. Don't dare understand business and branding. They should have just given me $200. I've been married 22 years. Teach a woman how to sew the button on and make some desserts and 2 good meals, and they'll be fine. So first you got to deal with the fact there aren't enough Black men. Then you have to eliminate the 1/3 that are felons, with the exception of the felon that has turned his life around and has gotten over the problems about housing and business. There are a few. There are a few exceptions out there. I've seen it, and it can be beautiful when it does happen. But overall, no. Then you got to get around the fact that you don't need to have a felon in the culture where men think that love is them subsuming your identity. And of course, the good men feel like they're entitled to so much more just because they're not their felonious brothers. You realize what this means that if you have three black men in a family, two are going to feel better about their lives by virtue of the one that's in prison, instead of looking at what do I have to do in the United States of America to actually lead a family in security to thrive? What do I need to accomplish as a man? Do you think there will be enough men at the Black Lives Summit to gather some of these younger men together and be like, look, turn off the people that have you complaining and carrying on. Here are some channels for you to look at. I guarantee you that I have had more positive black man channels that men can look at than most of the men that are going to be at that summit. Here's some channels you can look at to start reorganizing your life. I'll put those in the description too. I'll put the positive men and women in the chat in the description for this video so people can have a chance. Do you think they're going to talk about the real issues? Let me help you understand something else. I've done this video before, but love does not exist outside of some companions. Love does not exist where brokenness and insecurity have made a firm home. Love cannot exist where unprepared, insecure man lives. It's just not going to work. The reverse is also true. So everybody needs to step back and look at, let's please stop going with concepts that have us delusional. Do y'all not know? We're talking out here talking about Black love in 2023. Do y'all not know the community is already gone overall? And the community is gone because our foreparents chose to integrate. And that was driven by black men who all they wanted to do was be accepted in white society. That's what drove that. Now, this is not to say black women didn't go along with it, but I'm just saying, you look at what this was about. We want to feel equal. It boggles my mind that black men are still talking about black women marrying massa. Where? Because these black men are still conscious of the fact that that gap has actually not moved at all. But the reason is gap's not going to move is that you have to actually take certain steps. We are in the 21st century economy. It does not matter what it is you try to do. If black women making money just made this video, if you want to be average, the American dream is out of your reach. It's over. It's done. The house, the picket fence, the two kids, and the car in the garage, you can't afford it. So what everybody needs to do before we run off to a Black Love Conference is figure out how do we get our economic understanding above average. And then we have a chance. Instead of running in there talking about, well, you know, love conquers all, and if we just come together. No, that is delusion. It's delusion. And so is this whole concept of Black love. It's delusion. Now, like I said, in the context of the demographics of San Francisco, it is normal and natural that there will be a certain number of black men and a certain number of black women that find each other. I know some wonderful couples. There's nothing wrong with that. Had Sergeant Love been 20 years younger, I would have been in one. Or Frank, had he survived, probably, either way. And the Creole and I, we loved each other dearly, but just were not compatible. But if we had been, I'd be in one. I'm obviously not opposed to that, but I need us to come in clear-eyed. Why did I love these men? Because we had a core shared values, and what we would have brought to the table economically would have been about even. Now, in all those cases, because I've had time, like I've talked to the Creole since, and we've talked about different investments. I've talked to him about Bitcoin and different things, and his wife was more into it than he was. So I've helped him to understand how to diversify. There's a copy of my new book that's coming out with his name on. He'll be one of very few black male readers, but he has a beautiful black wife and two beautiful black daughters that he is absolutely devoted to. And I'll make sure he has that resource so he does not miss out. I'm not opposed to black men becoming men like my father and having their families. I was raised in a balanced patriarchy. I wasn't raised in a matriarchy. I was raised in a balanced patriarchy. My mother's father was a very good man. My father is a very good man. I would not be opposed to that. But this is not going to be the reality for most Black women if the stats hold up. Because there's 3 million more, 2 to 3 million of more of us anyway, and a felon cannot, in most cases, there will be exceptions to the rule. I know a few, but unless he has gone through a life transformation, I mean, get saved for real and get around men who can mentor him, he is not going to be able. You're going to be in jailhouse rock doing that. So I can't recommend that. That's 5 million men. And then you already have a 3 million overage. So that means that you are not going to be able to do this. This is a delusion. This is so that Black women can be put up on the shelf, like Deval Ellen said he wanted to do to Kadeem, while he goes and does what he wants to do, picks up all the babies he's not taking care of, picks up all the STDs the antibiotics do not work for, pick up all the scars and the damage, and still have a Black woman left over that he can now be an old man on the decline and still drop some more kids and then still run off if he gets tired of trying to do this and leave another trail of broken people. So that then the world system that we have in the United States can then take those broken kids and pull them in and start the cycle again. Ladies, stop, please, being deluded. You need to know who you are and what you want. Confidence was love's first of her 4 big questions. Self-confidence, becoming the self-confident Black woman. You need to know to whom you are called. Now, I speak from a Christian context. I belong to the Lord Jesus Christ. He called, I answered. And that's just your daily walk. And so that gives me a path of life. I do not intend, and of course it's forbidden, but a man says to a Christian, okay, we're going to look and see. We're going to see if your life is a very big call and response. By the time you get anywhere around marriage for age to be, there better be some fruit. And I'm going to take my time and examine it too. See, I tell people all the time, I walk around here, I own all these trees. I inspect all of them. I go from tree to tree and eat what I want to eat, all through from June all the way down to December. I inspect fruit and I expect fruit. Ain't no way in the world because I know what my core values are. And it is better for me not to compromise that. Because again, I have all these stats. And it does not mean that if there was a Black man who God sent, who had all the same core values, who was positioned to be able to care for me and nurture me. And by the way, Black men come so scared that if they do this, the woman's going to take advantage of them. No, go ahead and get you a woman that's going to put you back in the coffin and lead you around. You're going to be carrying the bags if you want to do that. If you ain't come leading in fear, if you come leading in fear, go away. You're not eligible. If you go into a relationship terrified, you have work you need to do on you, which is the nice way of saying, go find your purpose and your courage, and then try to deal with a woman. Because you're just going to be scared. No one has time for a coward. Well, there's all these reasons. Okay, go deal with your reasons and come back. You handicap yourself. Who was I talking with? Train pack, baby. Fear creates self-fulfilling prophecies. I've recently been through this. Person A understands that person B can leave them at any time. Person A then leans into controlling behaviors because of the fear in an attempt to hang on, which therefore precipitates person B leaving. What person A feared, that fear wasn't actually doing anything. Let me give you a bigger example of this. The year is 1860. Abraham Lincoln is running for president. Abraham Lincoln has said on record that he's interested in preserving the Union. If he can do it and keep slavery in place, he will. He married a slave owner's daughter. He looked to inherit. His top general, General Grant, same thing. These men were hypergamous. They married up into the system of slavery. Abraham Lincoln was so wedded to it that he gets out progressive in that same year by another man who said, look, if we could avoid doing the Civil War, I'd free all 4 million slaves today. I would let it loose because I've been in a war already. I'm old enough. I'm in my mid-50s. I've already been in a war, been there, done that, seen the movie. Y'all have no idea what we're about to do out here. If it were up to me, I'd let them all go. And see, when you're Abraham Lincoln and you get out progressive by Robert E. Lee, you're no foe to slavery. But the South had convinced itself that the Republican Party was immediately going to abolish slavery. And so they let themselves go out on a limb and say that if he's elected, they're leaving the Union. It was not that Lincoln planned to abolish slavery. The South allowed its fear of that to cause them to secede, which led to the Civil War, which led to the abolition of slavery. But see, the story's not finished yet. And this is what I'm talking about. When people lead with fear, there's still one thing they can do to control you. After the Civil War, Nathan Bedford Forrest, a colonel in the Confederate Army, broke his parole and led a great number of other men out on parole. And in the mountains between Tennessee and Virginia, they formed a secret society called the KKK. Since they could not do anything about the Union and its 1.8 million white troops, to say nothing of the often said nothing about the 180,000 United States colored troops, they then decided that if we cannot get at the people that we want to, we will just simply impose control over these defenseless slaves because the Union can't stay down here forever. Sure enough, by 1877, Jim Crow. People do not want to change. So if you stay around them, then you end up dealing with the brunt of punishment. And this is why Black people moved in the Great Migration in the 20th century and moved in the 18th, in the 19th. This is how you have all these Black people continuing to move north and west over this whole period of time. Because the sensible person is going to do what? Run. When you lead with fear and controlling behaviors, sensible people run. So when Black men come with all this fear about what this woman's going to do, he precipitates the very behavior, except that 1,800 times a year, he then reverts to the KKK option. We're going to talk about this at the Black Love Conference? Somebody let me know. And this is why, ladies, I would not have you to be ignorant. I'm not saying, again, the demographics of San Francisco allow for Black women to be happy alone and relatively safe compared to many other places they can live because of gentrification, because the drug dealers and the gangbangers have been pushed out. Allows them to be relatively safe here. And it is a relatively safe city since the foolery of criminal Black men is really well controlled here. Ain't nobody trying to do it here. That period in San Francisco's time period is over. Even the remaining Black neighborhoods have pretty much been gentrified out of existence. And that's very sad for those men and the women and children that are connected with them. It's not all that sad for the rest of us. So it is an environment in which Black women can choose how they want to interact. And yes, there's room there for Black men and Black women who are doing the darn thing correctly to be together, proportionate to the actual demographics. That's what it should look like. It should not look like Black women desperately trying to get up all over the few remaining Black men here because of some delusional, twisted, evil, sick version of Black love. No, find love. And when you find real love, here's what's going to come with it. Love is going to come with its companions, justice and righteousness. None of that involves dehumanizing Black women. None of that involves, well, if it's real love, you're going to take my name. Not necessarily. There's something called business and branding. You want this woman to come with all this stuff and bring all this. What do you bring to the table? My name and my brand. And no, you cannot have it. Thank you, bye. Justice and righteousness looks at the person for who they are instead of what you need them to be to feel like you somebody. So where that does not exist, nope, love is not there. Love also comes with joy, peace, long suffering, or patience, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and self-control. I know all of you aren't Christians, but you ought to at least be able to look at, is this person a joyful, peaceful person? Because if there's no joy and there's no peace, there's no love there either. At least work on the first three. And then gentleness and goodness is kind of important, and patience is good too, because life is hard. He ought to be a strong man with self-control. That's meekness. And of course, as a Christian, I would not think about marrying a Muslim, a Baha'i, a Rastafarian. That doesn't match. That's unequally yoked. We did that video also. But at least look for the fact that actual love comes with actual a desire to have knowledge of the soul and the spirit, and to then look to cherish the beloved. And also, of course, Black women understand that you also need to pursue your healing, and you need to pursue finding who you are meant to be, and what you actually are in this earth to do, even under common grace. If you're not going to be a Christian, at least under common grace, find out what your skills and talents are. If you are a Christian, you need to find out who you are in Christ. You put some study into that. That means you're going to have to actually go start reading. But to make it really easy, Ephesians 1 will actually tell you why you are here in the universe. And it has nothing to do with you simply being a helpmeet. 1 Corinthians 7 will let you know that it is okay for you to be single until God sends you a husband. Be chaste, be single. Ask the Lord to help you with that self-control. And if you really have no control and you really do need a husband, so you're not out here fornicating and picking up STDs and babies that you really are not ready for, he will do that. But if you can maintain self-control, it is better for you to stay single. That's God's opinion on that. Men want to quote, well, woman was made to help you. No, the Bible did not stop in Genesis chapter 1. Did you see that part about be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth was written both to the men and the women, since we're going to be up in here? Did you see that part about how God does not blame woman for bringing sin into the world? He accepts her conversation. She was deceived, so you need to stop trying to throw her under the bus. Did you read the fact that the curse was put on earth instead of a man, but the man was held primarily responsible? Did you get that? Did you read all that? Did you read all the way through Ephesians 5? Husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church and gave himself for her. Did you read far enough to know, oh, wait, Jesus Christ died for his church? Oh, I'm supposed to sacrifice my life for my wife's betterment. Did you read all that? Did you read all that? Don't deal with Christian men who ain't read all that. And in their interaction with you, do not demonstrate a knowledge of that. Don't deal with Christian men who do not have a firm relationship with God and actually see him as the authority, who are not interested in understanding what their life is in that context. Don't deal with Christian men who therefore are not good stewards of their time, their money, their resources, and who do not understand that other people are not competition to be destroyed to try to step up, that the world system is not the thing to be pursued. Don't get involved with men like that. Black love will have you out here looking stupid. Interracial marriage and divestment and hypergamy, if you're not careful, will have you out here looking stupid. Men are men. You must vet them all, and you must prepare yourself to understand, I am not here to be any man's chattel. I don't care if it's for the white hand side version of the American dream or the black excellence, black hand side version of black love. That's a fallacy. I don't need any part of that. Now, you can choose it if you want to, but there's a difference between you choosing it and you thinking that you're locked down to it because you are a Black woman. You were not born into slavery. Therefore, you were not born into chattel status. You are a fully endowed human being, and you were not put here to be a slave. Understand that, Black women. Because see, In some neighborhoods, we back at living under Jim Crow, except there's black men on the street that think they can kill us for not complying. Those, we're not gonna call that a community. We call it a locale. We live in environments where people are trying to strip us of our civil rights. And as I've said before, I did the public service announcement. If somehow Donald Trump ends up in prison and it's Madam DA Fonnie Willis and he ends up broke, he just got dropped off of Forbes, richest men in America list because of Madam DA Letitia James up in New York. Understand that other groups of men are going to be looking to enact revenge rituals. Now, you can get a black man like that too, actually, because a goodly number of them are Trump supporters. But I'm talking about white men. They're going to be looking to enact revenge rituals because they can't get to Judge Tanya Chutkan. They can't necessarily get to Madam D.A. Fonnie Willis. They can't necessarily get to, I just said her name, Madam D.A. Letitia James. They can't necessarily get to those women, but you can't be out there getting. You must purge yourself of all delusions about your value as a woman being a breeder only. Find out who you are as a human being. Explore your gifts, your talents, your interests, whatever faith you practice. I, of course, must recommend to you Jesus Christ. I cannot recommend you anything else. I will say that no matter what faith you're in, you need to know what that is, and you can line it up by the claims of Christ. I've had students of mine who became Muslims temporarily and walked back into church this year. Because I already knew what I taught them was going to win out in the end because Jesus Christ is real. I already knew that. But I told her, oh, you're going to be a Muslim? That's cool. Learn the Quran. Learn the Quran. Understand what you were involved in, what you say you practice and believe. You're a grown woman now. I can't tell you what to do. But you know what I taught you. Measure it up. Measure it up. She did. She came back. And if you belong to Jesus Christ, you coming back. I've had this conversation with people before. It's a different video. But you whatever it is that you're called to. Now, of course, Jesus Christ has not called everyone. If you're not answering, he hasn't called. If you hear him calling and you get through your life and you have not answered, opportunity is there for everybody, but not everybody's going to answer. But whatever it is that you're doing, be sure that you're doing that not because you feel like that's your chattel assignment. Some of you should stop going to church because you don't want to be there. You don't believe in what the church has to offer. You may not want to because that church may be no good. If you're doing it just because you feel some obligation to somebody else, just stop. We all had to stop for COVID, and God did not throw lightning out of heaven. He is not Zeus. Get out of the habit of doing things because that's what black women are supposed to do. Who says? None of these mortals are God. And some of you ain't listening to God either. So why you gonna give all this attention to all these mortal men and a few mortal women who don't love you, don't care about you, and want you plowed under so they can step on you, so they can get to a slightly different position in the system that sees them as just as much chattel? They were overseers who were black too. They were still slaves. They just got to beat on the other black folks a little bit more. And these are the people telling you that because they were homeless at one time and couldn't, I thought they should have been able to get a date because they were good looking. They're going to tell you now to give the analog who could only handle a light bill and take you out to dinner a few times. You should be able to give him a chance if he has quote unquote good character. Do you know a man of good character will be figuring out how to do a little bit better than that before making a home and some kids? You got women out there talking about women should be getting their Mrs. degrees like whites and Asians and so forth. Well, no, that's not going to work because I already talked about no. If you African American black women don't have those options, there aren't as many black men, and then you got a third that are felons. So, no, from the gate, before we even talk about the femicide numbers and all the rest of that stuff that she's ignoring, but you got black people like this too trying to be overseers, pushing black love when the whole concept is a crock. You have been warned. Please save your money on the 21st. Leave that for people who are uninformed, who have looked at no data, who have looked at no census information, who have no idea, have done no Googles, have done no background check. If you don't know any better, we will understand you investing in foolery. But now you know better. I have discharged my responsibility. You are now free to go get your life together. Find out who you are. Find out to be how you be happy with what you are and what you are doing in the world by yourself, so that you can then go meet people who are fellow travelers. And among those fellow travelers, allow a fellow traveler who is willing to love and cherish you. Do not be a bigot. Vet everyone. But allow that man who is willing, open your mind to let a man who is willing to love and cherish you in any human, beautiful human shade there is. To show you his worthiness, to call himself your husband, your man and your husband. Do not be deluded by all these ridiculous concepts that have no basis in fact. All right. Y'all have a good day now. It's raining now. I might be out and about tomorrow. We'll see what happens, but we might be on a climb tomorrow. We'll see. Y'all have a good day now. Bye. Thank you for listening.